morning, everybody. This thing called employer brand has shaped, frustrated, thwarted, accelerated my career over the last 20 years. And every time I think that I've managed to put this subject of employer brand to bed and I can talk about something else, people like Jim and Porter phone me up and say, could you come and talk about employer brand? And when they did, I was like, really? Really? Are people still calling it employer brand? Do we have to do that? And I think it's because I first came across the term when I was a resourcing strategist at British Airways almost 20 years ago. And I still think that employer brand then, as it is now, is a bit like the corporate B-day. Every posh place needs one, but nobody's quite sure what to do with it. And in those days, it was, I was talking to the chaps from SMRS this morning. You know, the Sunday Times was enormous. You know, all the headhunters at Hodes and Macmillan were wanting to get their advert in the Sunday Times. There were no metrics to prove it ever really worked. And budgets for advertising were absolutely enormous. And so therefore, organizations needed this badge of honor, which was, well, how do we differentiate ourselves in the Sunday Times? How do we have a slogan or a tagline that makes us look sexy and we can win awards at the RADs and we can get a pointless award from the CIPD because our focus groups in getting to that tagline were bigger than everybody else's focus groups in getting to that tagline. And what happened is the world changed, but I'm not sure HR changed. So if you think about it, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we'd go to the travel agents. We'd sit with an arm of brochures and we'd pick out the nicest hotel or the nicest resort. And then when we got there and the sea wasn't as blue or they were still building it, we wrote to Anne Robinson. And we believed what the travel agent told us. And then something like TripAdvisor comes along and turns that industry on its head. Because actually, we don't need the organizations to tell us how great they are and how blue their sea is. We've got people we've never met who are our friends or friends of friends telling us that in the most honest and authentic way. And so actually the consumer has taken over control of communications. There's a fantastic app called Vivino, which is a bit like Shazam for wine. So basically you have Vivino on your phone and you point it at the label of the wine bottle and it tells you what the best year is, where you can buy it, who's got it on sale, how much you should pay for it. And actually that's people-powered communication, so all the wine critics are up in arms saying, but we tell you how good the wine is. And everyone said, well, no, because Muriel from Margate tried it yesterday. And she doesn't agree with you. She thinks it's not as fruity as you said it was. And that's the same thing with this thing called employer brand. If you want to sell your organization as a great place to work, you start with your own people. Because if you don't start with your own people, you don't have an employer brand. And I think too many people start in recruitment. How are we going to go out there in the marketplace? And I still struggle to see any organization that puts their money where their mouth is and really wants to change fundamentally internal behaviors and have consequences for partners in the Big Four who are hideously inappropriately behaved but deliver a great revenue line and a great revenue stream and actually make everybody's lives miserable in the process. Where is the organisation that's standing up to that and having consequences? Because that would say more about your brand as an employer than anything else. So really bad hay fever at the minute, so I brought a glass of water with me, which I'm going to ditch. So my work now is with a lot of the big branding agencies. Because it's the marketing function, not HR, that have got the influence and have woken up to the fact that if we want to make our brand, let's not talk about employer brand, there is only one organizational brand. If we want to make our brand real in a customer service economy or in an environment where actually our product is innovation, then we need our employees, our colleagues to be advocating for us. They're out there all the time sort of vomiting organizational DNA in the pub, on Facebook, on Glassdoor, in front of the customer. And so the brand agencies are waking up to the fact that you can have the best fonts and the best logo and the best brand architecture, but actually the biggest part of your brand strategy has to be your own people. And I'm really worried for HR that marketing and branding inside organizations are getting that point across when we should have got it across 20-something years ago. So I do a lot of brand engagement work. I do a lot of what is our purpose. Imagine if we disappeared overnight. How would the world change? And actually, it doesn't matter where I am in the organization, how do I see line of sight back up to from what I do through to what our benefit is to the customer. Not what we sell the customer, not how quickly we do it, but actually how do we change that customer's life? How through our product, our service, whatever we do, how do we make that person's life different? And Stuart talks about insurance companies. I did a big piece of work with an insurance company looking at their purpose. And you'd ask people all over the world, what do you do? I process claims. I send out checks. I go and assess claims. I work in a contact center. And people had lost sight of what their purpose was. And actually what they did in that organization was they made the world a safer place. So because in order to set premiums at an appropriate level, they had to look at risk. So they would go into factories and they would see if it was a safe place for the people to work in those factories because they didn't want a huge claim. And actually you've got to rethink, what is my purpose? What am I actually here to do? And many organizations lose that. They lose it, they get bogged down in job descriptions and process points and all of those things. And people have lost the soul and humanity around what they are there to do. The thing that people are really scared of is emotion. It's interesting what Stuart said about love and Southwest Airlines. 93% of workers at Southwest Airlines participate in community activity which is non-paid on their own time outside of working at Southwest. So they have built a community and a sense of belonging that makes people want to still be part of that brand and advocating that brand and pushing for that brand in positive ways on their own time. And I think that's a real test of people's brands as an employer. And what I also see missing in many organizations is not only the sense of purpose, but a sense of belief. You know, do I believe in what this organization is here to do? Do I believe that we're able to do it? Do I believe that if I don't think we're able to do it, I will be able to stick my hand up inside the organization and be able to ask somebody, I'm a bit concerned about our future, can you reassure me about where it's going, because they have that dialogue culture. And too many organizations have brand passengers, people who are at work, going through the motions, collecting a paycheck. Their emotional contract with the organization is non-existent. It is a functional contract. And actually the organizations that I see who are successful have individuals, have leaders, have cultures where belief is allowed to grow. But you will never have belief unless you have trust. And too many organizations, and enable to have trust, you have to let go. And back to the question about professional services firm, I do a lot of work with the professional services firms. And they are realizing that they have built a culture and a way of working which is around regulation, rules, and policy. So instead of trusting people not to do things, or creating the environment where there's a dialogue culture, or where if somebody wears flip-flops in the office, that was the example I had recently, but we need a 38-page dress code policy because somebody might wear flip-flops. Well, if they wear flip-flops, tell them that flip-flops aren't appropriate. End of. Why do you then need a 38-page policy that regulates every possible dress code scenario when you should be having a conversation? So trust is hugely important inside an organization. And you can't have a strong brand as an employer without trust. And back to Stuart's point around innovation. There was one client I worked with a few years ago, and we said, we've decided that one of our values is going to be innovative. So from tomorrow, everybody's going to be innovative. And we've set up an innovation department. And we've even decorated some of the meeting rooms, and they're so funky that we've named them the Disney room because, obviously, it was some beanbags and some purple paint. And, Mickey Mouse would have had a heart attack if he'd gone in there. But they couldn't get their innovation value to work. And so we did a diagnostic and an audit. And it's because they had an entrenched blame culture. Partly driven from the financial crisis. But if you have a blame culture, you can never innovate. And one of the biggest struggles for organizations is to decide to what extent do we give people freedom, to what extent do we show them trust. And actually, what's an appropriate mistake and what's an inappropriate mistake? And how do we then have the right conversation around, was that the right thing to do? What learning are we going to take from it? Was it a stupid thing to do, therefore we need a different type of conversation? And the consistent thing that I see in organizations is there are virtually no organizations that have managed to create an open feedback culture where you can coach somebody, you can tell the truth fast at any given moment in time. And too many organizations are still regulated by the HR alarm clock. And they go through this farce of performance management, and it is a farce because the alarm clock goes off and people say, oh crap, communication from HR, we've got to send out the forms, we've got to collate the feedback, we've got to bring it in, I've got to have a conversation with somebody I've hardly spoken to all year. I hate giving bad news, so I know I'm just going to give them the same score that I gave them last time because I'm terrified as a line manager that if I give them the rating that I really want to give, that I haven't got any evidence because I haven't had that conversation and they'll probably sue me and it'll be a black mark, and actually I like giving good news anyway. And that's by and large how the performance management system works in most organizations. So if you want to talk about employer branding and you want to build your brand as an employer, you need to build a community. You need to build a community that people believe in and people want to belong to, where you have open, honest conversations at any time of day, so you don't need a 38-page document to legislate against flip-flops. And people have coaching conversations all the time, and you virtually make the performance management system redundant. But that is a huge aspiration. So before you go and define your tagline or your slogan and all of those things to send out there in order to say we're a great place to work, start building it from the inside out. The other thing that I passionately believe in is that HR needs to start working together. So instead of working in our functional silos, and I've sat on HR leadership teams, and you do the round the table, so what's happening in recruitment, what's happening in performance management, what's happening in learning and development, and what are you doing to create that holistic experience through the organization that is from start to finish, where you create brand fans for life. So we're obsessed with recruitment. Most organizations do lazy recruitment. They still do lazy recruitment. They either give it to too many headhunters, I'm going to get into trouble for this bit, give it to too many headhunters, or they, on campus, you throw your net on this campus and haul it in, and you get people of the, everybody's got a 2-1, tick. Everybody's been to the right type of school, tick. Everybody's led a team of people up a mountain in the Lake District, in the snow in a bikini, tick, And there's no sense of employability, there's no sense of, actually let's look somewhere where we might get a different range of people, because when I was 18, 20, God how many ever, 7 years ago, if you had a certain type of brain, you went to a certain university, and woe betide you if from your parents or the school if you looked at a different university, because if you were good enough for Durham and Bristol, you damn well go to Durham and Bristol whether you liked it or not, and you couldn't go to Teesside and study something that you really wanted to study. You went and did law, history, whatever, and then all the big four and Arthur Anderson and whoever would throw the big net and they'd haul you in, job done, perfect. The generation of my godchildren go to whichever university they want to study whatever the heck they want, and they go where they can belong to a community or have a sense of belonging, which could be based on things like their gender, their race, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, their love of clubs because the place has great clubs, and we still do lazy recruitment. So let's stop obsessing about the recruitment process, but actually put as much effort into the exit process across the employee life cycle. So we have that consistent experience. You know, 60% of McKinsey's revenue comes from alumni. And back to professional services, which other professional services firm are sending out their brand ambassadors as alumni in a way which is a strategic revenue marketing opportunity, and I'm not sure that they are. And that's because at McKinsey, whatever you think of them, they have honest conversations. Do you know what? We don't think you're going to be a McKinsey partner, but heck, let's help you and let's have the right type of conversation so we can help you to continue to be successful. You know, I met with a partner at one of the big four yesterday, and she said to me, you know, once you become a partner, you never really stop becoming a partner until the day you die, because you join that elite club, and it's a badge that you wear for life. And my challenge back to her was, that's great, but when I work with professional services, whether they're lawyers or accountants or what have you, Generation Y is not interested in the partnership model in the way that we were. And the savvy partners inside the professional services firms are waking up to that. We don't want to be on that escalator where the alarm says senior manager, director, whatever, oh, you can be a partner. And actually, I don't want the lifestyle of a partner. And I don't want to do that. And actually, because of the economy, the carrot of becoming a partner is further and further and further away. So to the question about professional services firm, you are going to go through a real crisis of identity in a not very short period, not very long period of time. The other thing about that for me is when we go back to employer branding, is too many organizations still want to create what is a KPMG type person, just brands at random. What is a British Airways type person? What's a such and such type person? And actually, if you think about our lives outside of work, we individualize to a certain extent, where we can spec our cars, our houses, our holiday experiences, our clothes. You can design Levi's online, you can design Nike online, but organizations are still trying to create that company X type of person. And what they've not woken up to is the concept of what I call talent leasing, which is instead of a recruitment metric which says how long do they stay with the organization and how did they fill in the pointless engagement survey, which absolutely they're not anonymous. And you don't need to be Edward Snowden to know that. Seriously. And so how do you actually say, do you know what? Because we have a CRM approach to talent, so because instead of throwing out our net and hauling you in, actually we've been talking to people in the marketplace and we've built a relationship with you and our brand that's not necessarily an employment relationship, but could be, or it could lead to being a consumer relationship. We need your skills and your talents for a certain period of time. Could we lease those and bring them in where it's mutually beneficial? And let's have that ongoing, open, honest conversation. So at the point where either party is questioning whether that relationship should still be there and I should still be leasing my talent to you, let's explore that. And if you shouldn't be, then we'll just cancel the lease. We still try and create a one-size-fits-all culture. And most organizations really, really struggle to allow the mavericks, the cultural rebels to fit inside the organization. And most organizations, in order to be a senior person, you have to have a huge department, manage a budget, and you stop doing the things that you were really interested in and drove you years ago. And I think that's why more and more people at 40 plus are jumping ship. And there's a brilliant Harvard Business Review case study, which is probably 18 months old, called Rise of the Super Temp. And read it, it's really cool. And that is the future of employer branding. How do we create a brand relationship with somebody whose contract with us is temporary? Now, I know I'm going to get into trouble, but there was just a couple of things I wanted to say, otherwise I won't sleep tonight. Leaders. We used to say people join a brand and leave a leader or leave a manager. That is still true. But actually, people don't join brands because of the leader. And so there have been a number of times when I've gone into the city in London and asked people, in professional services out there and in banking, do you want to go and work for professional services firm X or investment bank Y? And the response too often has been, well, it depends who the department head is or the partner. Because if it's him, no way, Jose, because everybody talks about him and what it's like, and he's got a revolving door in his department. But if it's him or her, absolutely, because they always take their team with them wherever they go. So actually, if you want to focus your employer branding budget, focus on your leaders and what they're doing. But if you don't have consequences for poor behavior, don't bother. There's absolutely no point. If somebody is going to behave badly in a way that significantly impacts employee engagement in a way which is genuinely tangible, not just on a survey, and you're not going to have consequences to deal with that, we all might as well go home. Really, truly. And I never thought I'd do it, but I do a lot of coaching. And the reason I didn't want to do a lot of coaching is there are many people out there who've left the world of HR, and this is going to make me really unpopular, and they've been on a Stroke Your Crystals course, and you go into, you're a coach, and you say, look, I've got a triangle. Now, where do you think you fit on my triangle? And actually what there is a need for is people who coach in tough, sensible, commercial ways and ask questions like, if somebody spoke to your daughter like that and she came home and said that she'd been spoken to like that, how would you react? Can you remember the teacher at school that coached you, cajoled you, encouraged you, stuck by you, stayed behind to help you? Do you remember the teacher at school that if they were on fire in the car park, you wouldn't pee on them? First one, Miss Rowe, Stanix Primary School, Carlisle, 1983, loved her to bits. Mr. Beattie, O-level chemistry class. If I saw him on a zebra crossing today, I'd flatten the bugger. He was an out-and-out bully. And I see people, like, oh yeah, I can remember. Well, you are the same as a leader. Which teacher do you want to be? So I think stick your investment in coaching leaders rather than anything else. And my final point is, when people ask me, when you go and look at, who does this really well? Who's really good at this? And I think it goes to Stuart's point, do it for yourself. People come to me and say, I want to be Apple, I want to be a Shoreditch type company. I go, really? You're an engineering firm. Why don't you build a culture for you that works for you, upon which you can put your own stamp on, and let's go and talk to your people in order to shape it. And actually, if people ask me for signs and symbols of an employer brand that works really well, I want to know their dress code policy. I want to know their working from home policy, their flexible working policy, because why is it okay to work on your sofa at 11 p.m. but not 1 p.m.? Where's the trust in that? Where's the management in that? It's lazy management to gain comfort from seeing people in the office. Because I have a news flash for you, they could still be really shit when they're in the office. And be doing sweet Fanny Adam in the office, but knowing the fact that they're in the office in a suit rather than flip-flops is lazy management. And the other thing for me is, what's your LGBT strategy? Don't tell me you have maternity coaches and all of those things. Those are becoming like table stakes. What is your LGBT strategy? And what are you doing for people who want to become transgender? What are you doing for people who, are your benefits reflective of same-sex partnerships? Because if you do that and you do it well and you do it with an honest heart, chances are everything which is less scary you're doing as well, and that's kind of the litmus test for me. So in summary, start inside, stop worrying about the outside, because actually if you look after the inside, the outside will take care of itself. And focus on your leaders and make sure that your leaders are creating the right kind of environment and that you've got a focus on them rather than anything else. Thank you.